market is weaker Friday morning as bearish chart signals weighed heavily on values and speculators remain on the short side of the market. Canola down $9 to $15. The May contract down $13.20 at $779 per ton. Yesterday's break below $800 in that contract did damage from a technical standpoint, with it now trading just above its next level of support of $778.80 hit back in September. Losses in outside markets, including Chicago soy oil, European rapeseed, and Malaysian palm oil, all added to the weak tone. However, canola is looking oversold and off its overnight lows in early trade. Wide crush margins and ideas that it remains attractively priced to end users also helped limit the losses. In the U.S., soybeans are lower while the grains are steady to higher. U.S. jobs data released this morning was mixed, with more jobs added to the country's economy, but an increase in the unemployment rate as more people were also looking for work. The resulting choppiness in the macro markets is spilling into the ag sector. Soybeans, though, did see some follow-through selling after yesterday's declines amid a lack of any real fresh news. The May contract down 4 cents at $15.06 per bushel. That contract had briefly traded below the psychological support at $15, but found some buying interest there to temper the losses. The poor crop prospects out of Argentina also remain supportive, with the Rosario Grain Exchange now pegging the country's crop at only 27 million tons. That compares with the USDA's already low estimate from earlier this week of 33 million. Corn, it's holding on to small gains, up 2 cents in the May contract at $6.13 per bushel. The Rosario Grain Exchange is estimating Argentina's corn crop at only 35 million tons. That's 5 million below the USDA's current guess. Wheat, it is also higher in most months. Minneapolis spring wheat up 3 cents in the May contract at $8.20 per bushel. Kansas City 7 cents per higher in May at $7.84 per bushel. And Chicago wheat also up 7 cents in the May contract at $6.73 per bushel. Speculative positioning a feature. Uncertainty over whether or not the Black Sea grain corridor, allowing Ukrainian exports, will be extended, did remain a feature in the background, as that deadline is fast approaching. Rains and snow in the forecast for dry parts of the southern U.S. plains should improve crop conditions for winter wheat there. That's a look at the ICE futures and U.S. markets for Friday, March 10th. In Winnipeg, for MarketsFarm.com, I'm Phil Franz Warkentin.
See more and do more in a new 300 Series compact track loader from New Holland. Its industry-leading 360-degree visibility is truly something to see at Butler Farm Equipment. With its reverse camera and 8-inch multifunction LCD display, super boom lift technology, rock-solid stability, and redesigned controls, you'll work with greater speed, safety, and precision. Maximum productivity starts with a clear view. Stop by Butler Farm Equipment in Fort St. John today and see how a new 300 Series compact track loader helps you do more.
The opinions expressed during this show do not represent those of this station. If you've missed any of this show, you can follow the podcast at energeticcity.ca. Now, an in-depth look at the news and information shaping our community. This is Moose Talks with your host, Doug Craig, on Moose FM.
Welcome to the show. Now, today's show is dedicated to one guest alone, our Peace River North MLA, Dan Davies. There's been lots to talk about in the last month as the new session of the legislature opened with the throne speech. Some 3 weeks went by before we got a budget dropped by the government, and lots of other things going on with Dan in and outside of the constituency. So a little earlier on, I was able to sit down and chat with him. Here is part one of that conversation now. Dan, thank you so much for making time for us on Moose Talks today.
My pleasure to be here.
So let's talk the budget first, since that dropped last week. I know you've kind of done a couple interviews with energeticcity.ca about the budget already. I wondered if there was anything you were happy to see in the budget that you think the government might be able to follow through on.
Well, there obviously, I guess no, I'll start with that. Not very much. We've, one of the things that we keep seeing, this is the 7th budget that this government has presented in the last 6 years. And this budget, like the others, have just been a complete regurgitation of announcements. The same stuff over and over and over again. What worries us is we're not seeing results. We see these big announcements and nothing happens. I look around the province and just look to one thing that this present government has planned and built. Well, there's none. So when you start thinking about that over the last 6 and a bit years, that's concerning. Public sector employees. Yes, we obviously do need to keep track of public sector employees as our province grows. We do need more people, but this government since 2018 has increased public sector employees by almost 130,000 people. Roughly a 35% increase in public sector employees. One would think that we would see, maybe a 35% improvement in healthcare, 35% improvement, when you go to Service BC counter or dealing with, you name it, the agency. But let's be honest, it's, if anything, it's 35% worse than it was in 2017. So when we start looking at really this budget and what's good and bad, well, I have a hard time saying anything good about it because we haven't seen it. There's nothing in there. And I've been saying this year after year on consecutive budgets. This government does not support the resource sector in British Columbia. And again, this budget actually shows that, they are predicting declining revenues. Well, of course they are. They don't promote forestry. They don't promote the oil and gas sector. They don't promote mining. And, we've seen that, certainly up in our area with the oil and gas industry facing, some of the biggest challenges that it's ever faced. So where does the government make up that money? Well, they're going to be reaching deeper into your pocket, now probably your back pocket, to make up those shortages through taxation. I mean, there is just no way that they can make their commitments unless they do that. So I'm really hesitant. Obviously there's little pieces in that we do agree with, but overall the sheer incompetence of this government and their budget is staggering, and it's been repeated year after year after year. And we see it probably more than most, being in a more rural, remote community. We just feel like we have the shoulder turned toward us, and I hear that all the time, and we've been talking about that for years, and it's just getting worse.
Mm-hmm. I mean, on healthcare, there's a couple things I want to bring up. First of all, of course, they've made some announcements of some big spending they want to do on that. And I think I want to note, too, that, of course, your party and Kevin Falcon, some time ago, a couple months ago or whatever it was, made a huge announcement about something that you would do if you were in power, which in the middle of a government's tenure in office, I thought almost bordered on statesmanship because, well, I mean, you announced it. You could have waited till it was an election cycle to say something, but it was a show of leadership from somebody to say, here's what we think we should be doing. And as such, the government is now, I don't know if they're copying you, but nonetheless, they say they're going to make big investments in mental health funding and whatnot. I wonder if you, again, I mean, do you see the government saying that they're going to spend money on this, that they're maybe overhauling how the fee system is going to work for physicians, which was announced before the budget, and all that, making a difference, especially here in Fort St. John, where healthcare is always top of mind with people here struggling to get it and find a doctor and get, healthcare in a timely fashion sometimes.
Yeah, and let's be honest. I mean, this is a huge issue right now, and especially in rural and remote BC. We had a bold plan and did present it, and the government did recently adopt some of it, but it still falls much shorter than we were hoping. Look, in Fort St. John or Fort Nelson, you pick the community. If someone is facing addiction and they have a moment of sobriety, a moment of clarity, and they want to seek treatment, the time for that treatment is now. And in Fort St. John and throughout the north mostly, certainly the northeast, that is not available. There are no detox beds in Fort St. John. There's no There was recent announcement, obviously, to look at some recovery beds and whatnot. But right now, we don't have it. It's absolutely shocking that after this was declared an emergency, the overdose crisis back in 2016, 2017, that this government has made zero progress on developing the supports that are required for people in the Northeast, and those big supports, and right now a big topic piece is obviously the supervised injection site, the decrim of illicit drugs. Those are just little pieces of the formula. However, this government's forgot about the most important pieces, and that is being able to get people clean, to get people back into a productive lifestyle, and we don't have that offer. So right now, this is a major issue that we need to be focusing on. And our should we be blessed with the next election, those are what we are going to do. We are going to commit to building beds. We're going to commit to getting people healthy. And we looked a lot at the very successful Alberta model that's happening in the jurisdiction next door to us, and have worked with people over there to help develop some of the policies, because we don't always need to reinvent the wheel. We just need to look, hey, where is it working? And Alberta's done some great stuff, and this is where we got some of our ideas from and presented them. And the government did take a few of them, but it fell way short of what they need, and way short of what we need up here in the Northeast.
Now, as part of healthcare, of course, you've been calling for the government to reinstate or reoffer jobs back to the many healthcare workers who left their positions because they were unvaccinated. And that mandate still stands here. I believe it's us and Nova Scotia, the last two jurisdictions in Canada, that still have that in place. Why do you think the government continues to drag their feet on this when that's a resource of healthcare workers that they could hire back today if they wanted to?
Yeah. And that's exactly, I had the opportunity during question period last week to ask the minister that exact question. Pretty much every other jurisdiction on the continent, has moved forward. It's back to normal. There's no mandates. There's no more important place, I think, than British Columbia to do this, because, I've been talking about our shape of our healthcare and the crisis that it is in, almost since I got elected, but it's got so bad, and it's from obviously a shortage of healthcare workers. Here is a pool of people right now in British Columbia that are sitting on the sidelines that want to come back to work, that are unable to. And the minister stood up and basically, sang from his song sheet he's been singing from for the last few years, and really provided no reason why. And that is concerning. And, we are going to continue. We started actually this back last June, first calling for this government to hire back healthcare workers, and drop the mandates. And, we're coming up on a year now that we've been calling that. And here we are. Again, one of the last jurisdictions that haven't done it. So, this is one quick way I think that we can really, make an impact, a positive impact on improving healthcare for British Columbians is hiring back these healthcare professionals.
Mm-hmm. Another thing on healthcare, I guess as of April 1st through pharmacare, some contraceptive devices such as birth control and IUD is going to be free, I suppose, in some situations, which will, I guess, make BC the first province to do this. What do you think of that, and how that's going to roll out?
Yeah, if you look at it, actually, it isn't a bad thing. Mm-hmm. We need to be looking at, there is a labor shortage. There's a labor shortage across the country. Gender equity, this is something obviously that we support. I think broadly British Columbians, Canadians support this. And, this is just one step forward. I think that moves us toward that. And, from an economic perspective, will improve with the labor force. Absolutely. I think this is a good step forward.
All right, Dan.
And it's actually we had called on previously as well. So this Again, this is another good idea that the government has taken, which is fine. I mean, ideas come from, from all sides of this house and from everywhere. So it is definitely something that we do support.
All right, that was part one of my conversation with Peace River North MLA Dan Davies. We'll be right back with part two right after this on Moose Talks.
Want to learn more about the dark side of Northeast BC's history? Secrets of the North is a new true crime podcast from energeticcity.ca focused on our corner of the province. Join hosts Emily Gallen and Spencer Hall as they discuss crimes that took place along the Alaska Highway back when it was being built, plus more recent sprees.
So today's case took place on or around August 18th of 1930, not far from Fort St. John, just 20 minutes east in a place called Cecil Lake.
Find out more at energeticity.ca/secrets.
At Work BC, we help you get the skills for a career in construction, healthcare, childcare, tech, and, well, you get it. Improve your skills with the training, resources, and financial support that help advance your career. Visit workbc.ca/findyourpath. A message from the Government of BC.
Does your family need a family fun night?
Yes.
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 Oh, yes.
Home Hardware presents the Family Fun Night Contest. Head over to moosefm.ca and click win. Tell us why you and your family deserve a family fun night. You could win $200 in gift cards to make your dream family fun night a reality. Family Fun Night is presented by Home Hardware and Moose FM.
Watch this show live on Facebook or download the podcast at energeticcity.ca.
Welcome back to the show. Now, as I said earlier, we were able to sit down with a member of the Legislative Assembly, Dan Davies, a little earlier on, and as such, we've got part two of that conversation happening right now. Now, I do also want to take a few minutes to talk about forestry, which of course is impacting people in Taylor now, but of course the community of Chetwynd, as a huge thing that they're going to deal with the closure of their mill there and whatnot. Again, the government's, I guess, announced some help that's kind of broad-based in what they might do to help forestry workers who are going to be out of a job if they aren't already. I just wonder what your thoughts are on what the government has announced so far and what you think they should be doing more of to avoid this sort of situation happening again or further in the future.
Well, it's interesting. And actually, my colleague from Peace River South, Mike Bernier, who is the Shadow Minister for Forestry, asked this question today to the minister. And, it's been a year and a half now since there's been a sale for fiber. And when we start looking around at the challenges, and here's another interesting point. In 2017, John Horgan, as part of his campaign, said, no mills will shut under our watch. No mills will shut under our watch. I've lost count of how many mills have shut under their watch across the province of British Columbia, including up in our region. So when we start looking at that, as I said earlier on there, Dub, the government is already predicting a 35% reduction in revenues from the resource sector, including forestry. There is no plan. There is no plan for the forest sector in British Columbia. And that is very worrisome, as, not all of us live in Vancouver. We choose to live and play and work in rural BC to play and be close with, nature and stuff. But it's also where the vast majority of the economic revenue comes from for the province of British Columbia. Forestry obviously is a huge one for this province, as is natural gas and mining. So as I started off with, when you start seeing this declining, there's no plan to improve it other than, hey, we'll retrain the workers into technology or something like that. That's not going to work. That's cold comfort for for the forced families and other families that are impacted and have lost their job to say, we're going to train you up into the tech sector. Well, what does that even look like in Fort St. John? It's absolutely ridiculous to actually even be talking about that. So we need to get back to a working with partners, come forward and get permitting done so that we can free up some fiber in the province.
Well, I've heard another interview on this topic from, and I don't remember who was speaking, so I apologize. But an idea that maybe a path forward might be looking at less exporting and more let's harvest, and then also focus on industry and manufacturing at home here in BC instead of sort of the approach that has been so far. Is that something a Liberal government might look into? And if not, what does a Liberal plan for forestry in BC look like, kind of broadly speaking?
Yeah, well, obviously value add is good. And I think that's what you're talking about, value adding, doing more with the wood here in British Columbia. For sure, we support that. And even when the BC Liberal government and soon to be the BC United, government, obviously we're going to continue doing that. But right now, it doesn't matter if you cannot get fiber. There is no forest industry, whether we're looking, it doesn't matter what aspect we're looking at. The value added piece, just general, cutting dimensional lumber or pulp and paper. It doesn't matter if there is no fiber made available. We don't have a forest industry. And that is the challenge that we're facing right now.
All right. A couple more points I want to make kind of beyond the budget now, if we can.
Well, I haven't even started talking about the good stuff yet.
Right.
The debt and the deficit that we're going to be taking on is just staggering. It's unbelievable.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk before the budget, too, because, of course, the throne speech drops and almost 3 weeks goes by before the budget actually comes out that members are then able to debate and whatnot. In that 3 weeks, there was some hijinks because, of course, it seemed like the government ran out of a legislative agenda. And at one day, I think members were let go 4 hours earlier. And at other times, government members were filibustering their own bills in order to sort of, I guess, fill time. I mean, I've never heard of this happening before. I mean, it was almost comedic that it was going on. I just wonder your thoughts on that and what looked like a massive stumble for a new premier trying to set an agenda in kind of his first session as premier.
Look, this has never happened before, and you're right. It is an absolute embarrassment for this government. The people of Peace River North have sent me down here to work on their behalf. I have to fly down here, stay in the greater Victoria area. I mean, this is an absolute waste of taxpayers' money. For almost a week and a half, there was no legislation. No, okay, and I got to say this: there was legislation. There was a government bill, as you mentioned. I can't remember the bill. I think it was Bill 8, but it doesn't matter. It was a nothing bill. It was a housekeeping bill. Debating the word and or, and it's like, we have no problem. Yeah, let's pass it. They spoke on that 2-clause bill. It was literally a piece of paper, and they talked on it for 4 days. Well, we didn't. So, but each of their members, MLAs, took their 30-minute time limit and spoke the same speaking. It was embarrassing. And looking through social media and even picking up the newspaper or the radio or whatever your news source is, that was what everyone was talking about, because nobody could believe that this was happening. And this is David Eby, the premier's first 100 days, and he was like, I'm going to change the world, and we've got a busy session coming up, and we're going to make changes. Well, and here we are. We're halfway through session almost, and we have really yet to see any outstanding legislation come forward. So, absolutely, I believe they are wearing egg in their face, and it's an embarrassment for the premier and the NDP government.
All right, and finally, before I let you go in a couple of minutes here, I also want to talk a bit about this petition to trigger a recall election in Peace River North. First of all, I want to talk about the recall election legislation. I think part of your statement when this first came out was, this is democracy in action. So in principle, I mean, you're not surprised that this might have happened at some point during your tenure, I suppose, eh?
Well, I wouldn't say it's a matter of being surprised or whatever. I mean, democracy is messy, and that's fine. That means it's working. And I am a true believer. And, my grandfather, he fought in the war. I still am actually presently serving in the reserves. This is just part of it. And people have their right to express their opinions. People have their right to exercise whatever piece of our democracy is made available to them. In this case, a recall notice. It's not the first. There's been a number of them over the past number of years. The one thing though that does worry me is around, I believe, a lot of false information on it. And I did mention that a few times. And I know I've been on your show, Dub, and I've been in media. The discussions around Bill 36. I mean, our party unanimously does not support this bill and voted against it. And, third reading is the only reading of a bill. The first two readings are processed. In fact, just today, our House Leader, Todd Stone from Kamloops, brought forward, tabled a motion to bring back Bill 36 so we can actually bring it back and debate it properly, make the amendments, ask the government the hard questions, take out clauses that should not be there. I mean, we never got to do that. And that was a huge problem. The bill is full of holes and challenges and issues. So we brought back that motion today, and it was turned down by the NDP. Of course, they have the majority. So we will continue to try and make those fixes on there. And again, all the other information. I mean, I meet with stakeholders every day that I'm back in the riding. Unfortunately, I am here in Victoria during session. That is my job, is to be here in Victoria representing British Columbians, representing the residents of my region on, right now, the big piece of legislation obviously is the budget, and whatever other legislation that comes forward. That is my role here. And when I'm in Fort St. John, I have an office in Fort St. John and in Fort Nelson where I'm meeting with people, meeting with stakeholders. And, that is what I will do. That's what I'm going to continue to do to represent the mass majority of the constituents. And I will always listen to people. And I'm looking forward to chatting with as many people as I can. We have a two-week time here. I'm there most of it. I got some committee meetings, but most of the time over the next 2 weeks, I'll be back in the riding.
All right, Dan. Well, I really appreciate you taking a few minutes to chat with us while you're at work. So thank you very much for being here.
My pleasure, Dub. Thanks again.
That was my conversation with Peace River North MLA Dan Davies. We'll be right back to wrap things up on Moose Talks right after this.
For years, I suffered from my own skin issues. Then I had an idea. Hi, I'm Colin Williborsa, owner of Can Have Today. As a local truck driver dealing with dry, cracked hands, I wanted to develop a product to help. I reached out to the right people, and now I'm extremely excited to be offering 4 amazing creams, including the award-winning Soothing Juggernaut. Can Have Today also won the Best Made Vegan Skincare Brand at the Canadian Business Awards for 2023. To learn more, visit canhavetoday.ca.
That was some party thanks to my buddy's beer and joint. Here's the keys, joint.
Yo, I'm not driving. I'm way too stoned. How are you feeling, dear?
Oh, since we had that talk, I'm not driving tonight at all.
What about you, Dave?
You only had a couple of drinks.
And only a couple of puffs.
I don't drink and drive. No way I'm getting behind the wheel when I smoked weed, too.
How are we getting home, then?
Come on, Dave. Take one for the team.
Don't let weed and alcohol influence your decision to drive.
Yeah, I need a ride.
A message from Mad Canada.
The Fort St. John Hospital Foundation 50/50 is back, and you can win up to $10,000. Get your tickets right now on their website, fsjhospitalfoundation.ca. Tickets are 2 for $10, 10 for $20, or 25 for $50, with the grand prize draw happening on March 14th. Proceeds from the lottery will help the foundation buy critical equipment and PPE for the hospital. Get your tickets at fsjhospitalfoundation.ca. The Fort St. John Hospital Foundation 50/50 is proudly supported by Moose FM and energeticcity.ca. BC Gaming License number 139266. Know your limit, play within it.
Did you hear?
Tell Moose FM how much you love listening using the brand new Moose FM app. Use the talkback feature on the brand new Moose FM app and tell us how much you love Moose FM.
It makes us smile.
I love Moose FM.
You can win up to $125 in gift cards every week just for telling us how much you love us. Falling in love with Moose FM is powered by Veronica's Closet, Windsor Plywood, Zendan Laser Technology, Rhythm Auction, and Merwin Optical.
Moose Country weather.
Today we are going to see a high of a -12 with some periods of light snow. Later tonight it's going to dip down to -19 and the snow is going to continue throughout the weekend and on into early next week. Tomorrow high of -14 and on Sunday a high of a -11.
Our community first. This is Moose Talks with Dub Craig on Moose FM.
Our thanks again to our guest for today, Peace River North MLA Dan Davies. Now, if you did miss this episode, you're just catching the tail end of it, you have a number of ways to be able to rewatch it. You'll be able to see the live video of it on the Moose FM or energeticcity.ca Facebook page very shortly. You can also listen to the podcast version of it now over at energeticcity.ca/podcast. And while you're there, it's going to be a chilly weekend. You might want to spend some time inside. Check out all the other great podcasts we have to listen to, including Before the Peace, Voices of the Peace, and Secrets of the North. That's the show for today. Big thanks to our producers, Trey Lopashinsky and Jordan Prentice. I'm Dub Craig. Be well.
Join us next Friday at 10 a.m. for another episode of Moose Talks, a weekly talk show about Fort St. John and the North Peace.